children, good morning. Hope all of you are fine and safe at home. I'm Munira Ibrahim, an English teacher. I would like to welcome all of you to this wonderful academic year 2020-21. Today we are going to discuss about the subject English language and literature. This year we have two textbooks. One is Moments and another one is Beehive. And each textbook contains this much lessons like in Beehive we have 11 prose and 10 poems, and in the textbook Moments we have 10 beautiful stories. Today we are going to discuss about a small poem from the textbook Beehive. The name of the poem is The Road Not Taken, written by Robert Frost. Have you heard about Robert Frost? Yes, of course. You might have learned one of his famous poems, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. So before moving towards the poem, I want to give you some information, some details about Robert Frost. Robert Frost was an American poet. Even though he was an American poet, most of his works were initially published in England, then in America. And he was born on 26 March 1874 and died on 29 January 1963. And some of his famous poems are The Road Not Taken, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Mending Wall, etc. Now just look at the introduction of this poem. What is the meaning of the road not taken? Here, the rod symbolizes our lives. Rod symbolizes our lives. And the title, The Road Not Taken, that means the path that we don't take in our life, that we don't choose in our life. That is the meaning of the title, The Road Not Taken, the path that we don't choose in our life. And here the poet describes his feelings about the choice that he had left in the past. And the path that which we have chosen decides our future, our destination. The important message the poet wants to give us through this poem is that the choice that we make has an impact on our future, and if we make a wrong choice, we regret it but cannot go back on it. So we must be wise while making choices. That is the important message the poet wants to give us. Now just look at this poem. And this poem contains 20 lines in 5 stanzas. First we will discuss the poem, new words, message, summary, poetical devices, questions and answers, and at the end of this video I will give you some questions that you have to find out the answers. Now just look at the first stanza of this poem. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood. And sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Look at the new words. Diverged, that means separated, and took a different direction. You can see here in this separated. Yellow wood, a forest with decomposing leaves. Here means old people. Undergrowth, that means dense growth of plants and bushes. That means forest. So what is this meaning of these 5 lines? The poet tells us that once he reached in a point where two roads were diverged, and now the poet was in a dilemma. What is the meaning of this dilemma? Dilemma means a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made between two or three alternatives, a confusion to choose one out of two. That is dilemma. And here you can see a person who is standing there in front of two rows and he has to choose one out of these two rows. So he was in a dilemma. And here look at this person who is in a confusion, who is in a dilemma to select his profession among a football player, engineer, policeman, like that. That is dilemma, confusion. So here, what is the poet's confusion? Is of course to select a rod out of these two. And he said, sorry, I could not travel both. As a single person, it is impossible for the poet to travel through this both rod at the same time. And he said, sorry. And be one traveler long I stood, and he stood there long time because two roads were, it is in a dilemma. He's in a dilemma to select one road. I looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. and he decided to check these two rods. So for that he took the first rod and he looked down as far as he could. But he couldn't he but he could not look through this rod because there was a bend and it hid his face, hid his sight, because it was underground bushes and plants were there, and it hid his face, it hid his sight, so he could not see forward. And that is about the meaning of these five lines. He reached in a point where two roads were diverged, and he could not travel through this both road at the same time. He took the first road and he checked it, but it hid his face because his sight, because bushes and trees were there. And look at the next stanza. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better climb, because it was grassy and wanted bare. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. He took the other rod, he checked the second rod, and just for what is the new verse, as good as the other one. That is the meaning of fair, as good as the other one. Climb, better option, grassy, unused, wanted where means had not been used. So he took the other rod just for the better option, because two rods were there and he just wanted to check these two rods to make his option better. Because it was grassy and wanted wear. The second rod, it was grassy and wanted wear. That means, not many people had chosen that road. Not many people traveled through that road. The boy decided to select that road, the second road, less traveled one. From this, we can understand that the poet he likes adventurous things. He likes to do the adventurous things. So he selected the second, less traveled road. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. He started to travel through that road, and he realized that both roads looks same. Both roads are same, because each option has its own advantages, disadvantages, and benefits. While traveling through that road, the poet realized that both road looks same. Each road has its own advantages and disadvantages, and the poet started to travel through that road. Third stanza. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. The poet further tells us that, and he started to travel through that second road, and he said, that morning both road looks what is fresh and very equally lay, because no step had trodden black. If no persons had walked over, or no persons had used that road, because if any people, if any man, or if any person walked over that leaves or used that road, the grass and leaves may turn black color. That is this trodden black, walked over. If any person walked over that road, the grass and leaves may turn black color. That means that morning that both rod looks same, look fresh. That means no persons had walked over or had used that rod. I kept the first for another day. The part decided to take the first road for another day. And he knew that it is impossible for him to come back and select the first road for another day. Still, he said he will come back and select the first road, because if we choose one road or one option, that option lead us to another way, and it is impossible for us to come back and select the first road. The poet knew that, and he said, I will come back and select the first road. And he knew that the one way leads to another way. And that is the meaning of the third stanza. And look at this last stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. And the poet tells further that I shall tell this with a sigh. With a sigh here means deep breath, hence here her in the future. And the poet tells us that After ages and ages in the future, he shall tell this with a sigh, with a regret that there was a situation. Two roads were diverged, and I selected the first one. I selected the less traveled, the second road less traveled by. And that has made all the changes in my life. And the poet tell us that he shall tell this with a sigh, with a regret. What is the regret here? He could not choose the first road. That is the regret here. The path he don't choose, that is the meaning of the road not taken. And he shall tell this after few years in future, he shall tell this with a sigh, with a regret. I could not choose that first road. So that is about this poem. So dear children, the important message the poet wants to give us is that while making choice, we should make wise options. We should make the options wisely. Whatever it is in our life, we have to make the options wisely. That is the important message the poet want to give us. If we make a wrong choice, we have to face the consequences in future. So we should be wise. So just look at the message of this poem that we already discussed. And now just look at the poetical device of this poem. First, look at the rhyme scheme of this poem. Rhyming verse, just look at this. I used different colors. I think it would be easy for you to identify this rhyme scheme, rhyming verse. First stanza, wood stood could is rhyming. Both and underground it is rhyming. So what is the rhyme scheme? A, B, A, B. Next stanza, fire, fair, where, there is rhyming. Climb and same is rhyming. So that is C, D, C, C, D. In all poems, this following the same rhyme scheme. Now look at the literary devices or poetic devices. First one is metaphor. Metaphor means, comparing two unrelated objects. That is unrelated things. That is metaphor. Here what is metaphoric words? Two roads, two choices we make in our lives. Here the poet used this word two roads to symbolize to metaphor to the choices we make in our life. That is the meaning of two roads here in this poem. That is metaphor, comparing two unrelated things. Here, yellow woods. Here, it means old age. Actually, the yellow wood means it's a forest. It represents autumn season. But here, the poet used here that old age because the poet wrote this poem in his younger days. And the poet said, a lot of old people were there in that society around him with their old thoughts. The poet wanted to make a different choice, a different option. That is why the poet used here old age. Anaphora. Anaphora means the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of a successive clauses. Look at the first stanza, you can see and is repeating. And sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as could. So and is repeating. That is anaphora. And next, imagery. Imagery is used to make the readers feel things through their five senses. If you read that line, two roads diverge near yellow wood. While reading this line, if you get an image in your mind, two roads is diverging, a person is standing in front of that two roads. If you get that image, that is imagery. Repetition. Repetition is a literary device that repeats the same word or phrases a few times to make an idea clearer and more memorable. Here, ages and ages is repeating. The poet is stressing that point, ages and ages. In future, he shall tell this with a sigh. That is, the poet want to stress that point. What is this stressing? We should make our choice wisely. Otherwise, we have to regret. That is ages and ages. So, that word is repeating. That is repetition. Alliteration. Alliteration means a repetition of same consonant sounds in nearby words. Here, verb sound is repeating. Its consonant sound is repeating. That is alliteration. And here, the, though, that, the, is repeating, the sound is repeating, that is alliteration. Personification, that means attributing human traits into non-human things or inanimated objects, that is personification. Here, what is the personified word? That is where. Where is the personified words? Because we usually human beings use this word where. The boy wears his uniform. Human beings use that word. Here, the part used to represent that rod. The rod is grassy and wounded wear. So that is personification. That is about poetic devices. Now just look at the summary of the poem. Once the poet reached in a point where two roads were diverged and he was in a dilemma, and he decided to select the second road, less traveled one. And that has made all the changes in his life, and after in a century, after few ages and ages in future, he shall tell this with a sigh. He could not choose that first road. We should make choices wisely. That is the message the poet want to give us. That is about the summary. Some questions and answers. First question: what was the poet's dilemma in the poem? The road not taken. What was his dilemma? That is the first question. And the second question: why did the poet doubt his coming back on the same intersection in life? What was his doubt? Because it is difficult for a person to come back and select the first road because one way leads on to another way. And some questions that you have to be answered. First question: describe the two roads that the author finds. Which road does he choose? Where does the traveler find himself? What problem does he face? And next questions: describe what these phrases mean to you. You have to write the meaning of these phrases. First one, a yellow wood. Second one, it was grassy and wandered where. Third one, leaves no step had trodden black. Fourth one, how way leads on to way. These are the questions that you have to find out the answers. And I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I hope you understood this lesson. Thank you so much and have a nice day.